I won't get too much into theory tonight, but I just wanted to begin by saying, like first and foremost, if you know anything about Euripides, you should know that he gave us choice on stage. He was the first person that actually wrote a character who had their own choices, whereas before everyone fulfilled their destinies. So from this very first point, we have to remember that Medea has a choice. And that's how I want to start off this whole process, because I think we tend to forget that. Even in contemporary theater, these people have choices. But especially, this is one of the first recorded instances of a choice on stage, ever, period. So by putting this in the 30s, in the Dust Bowl, we're going to cut to like the psychological and the social environment that would drive a human to their breaking point. So it's mostly about shaping an environment that would drive almost any of us to a point to where we would do horrendous things or things that are out of character. I think it's a mistake to solely focus on Euripides' work on a psychological level. A lot of theorists do that, a lot of directors do that, to where Euripides is a very psychological piece, or his work is psychological. Yes, it's the first instance that we see psychology on stage, but from my understanding, it was mostly writing about the social environment of the time. He was the first, he made what were called living room plays, basically what we would call realism. And today you hear realism and you're like, realism. But then that was avant-garde. I mean, that was, unheard of. So, we are looking at the social environment that shapes Medea to make these choices. And the psychology is almost a result of the social environment. So, that's why I've said it in the Dust Bowl. The idea was an environment that was suffocating, and I kept thinking of like hyperventilation, just claustrophobic. It's so, if you have seen anything from the Dust Bowl, you see them in gas masks on the streets. And that's what really inspired me. I saw a documentary on the Dust Bowl, and people were walking around the streets in full suits, and they would have a gas mask on, just pretending like nothing was going on outside. I'm gonna go get my groceries. Right. Let me grab my purse and my gas mask. And so that's why, to have that, one, it's a very interesting aesthetic look for theater, and it provides a disconnect. But, I really wanted to highlight on that environment. And also, as many of you have heard me say before, we're commenting on kind of this historical aspect of women's hysteria. If a husband was dissatisfied with how his wife was behaving, if she was asking too many questions, or she wasn't caring for the children in the way he deemed appropriate, or maybe he didn't have an excuse, he could easily cart her off to a mental institution. I don't know, I'm sure some of you know this, but like that's how A Doll's House, the true story of A Doll's House, Ibsen's basis of the story was about this woman who tried to leave home. Well, what he doesn't say in the play is she ended up in a mental ward. The husband checked her in, whenever he felt like taking her out. He went and got her, and she stayed the rest of her life with him. So, and this went on all the way up until the 50s, the 60s, and, not to maybe that severe of a degree, but you could see it in a varying degree of this women's hysteria. So that's why, getting that social environment that would kind of comment on the hysteria aspect of it. That's why I saw this piece. I've been thinking about this piece for about a year now, and I just knew this was the key piece for me. The Dust Bowl didn't come until like a couple of months ago when I was watching that documentary, and I was like, oh my God, that's it, that's the world. Now, that was the key piece, that how we could comment on it.